Turkish footballer Mehmet Demiral has received a 2-match ban by UEFA after making this gesture during his country's victory against Austria. Many news outlets reported it as an ultra-nationalist sign, but at a press conference, the player called it an expression of Turkish pride and said he intends to do it again when the opportunity arises. The Turkish Football Federation said they would appeal UEFA's decision. The gesture attracted criticism from German politicians where the match was played, like Interior Minister Nancy Faeser, who called it extremist and racist. The Turkish Foreign Ministry officially condemned the ban, calling it xenophobic. The incident escalated to a diplomatic clash when both Turkey and Germany respectively summoned each other's ambassador. But why does this gesture invoke different reactions from different people? What does it actually symbolize, and why have some countries outright banned it? To better understand when and how the wolf salute became controversial, I'd like to draw a parallel to another gesture that most of you are already familiar with. This is the Roman salute. It first appeared in the Oath of the Horatti, a 1784 painting by a French artist showing 3 Romans saluting their swords as they take their oaths. The gesture also appears in many of his other works. Following his work, the gesture was adopted by 19th and 20th century pop culture, such as Ave Caesar, morituri te salutant, Hail Caesar, those who are about to die salute you. These works portrayed the salute as a Roman custom, up until the 1914 classic Italian film Cabiria, and by this point the Roman salute in Italy was already heavily linked to nationalistic views of the Roman Empire. Through these nationalistic influences, the Roman salute became part of the Italian fascist movement under Mussolini's regime. Later, it was adopted by other fascist movements, including the Nazi Party in 1926. The Nazis took power in Germany in 1933, and due to the sheer scale of atrocities they would go on to commit, the symbol would forever be associated with the Nazis, and thus shall henceforth be referred to as the Nazi salute. Contrary to widespread belief of the time, or what its name suggests, it was not used during the Roman times. It is not found in Roman literature and is never mentioned by ancient Roman historians. Not a single Roman work of art displays this salute. So why are we talking about the Roman salute? This is the wolf salute. Not to be confused with the similar looking sign of the horns which you see at rock concerts. It has been used by Turkic peoples throughout history, going as far back as Turkic tribes in Central Asia, at least according to this Turkish newspaper article from an unnamed author and no sources. A lot of other publications seem to repeat this story as well. In any case, the wolf salute came into prominence in the 90s after it was adopted by Alparslan Türkeş, a Turkish politician and founder of the far-right nationalist movement party and its youth paramilitary wing, the Grey Wolves. Now, the wolf does play a symbolic role in Turkic mythology. However, the wolf salute hand gesture was not commonly used until the 90s. There are no references to the wolf salute in historical literature, and it is never mentioned by ancient historians, not by ancient Turkic writers, not even by Türkeş himself when he wrote the party doctrine in 1965. Nor by various travelers who met Turkish tribes, not in Central Asia, not in Anatolia, nor anywhere in between. In fact, I failed to find any concrete evidence of this hand gesture existing before 1991. Not a single book, article, photograph, or video. None. Now, I'm willing to admit I could very well be wrong about this, and if you know something, please send it over and I'll add it in the video references. But I would be very impressed if anybody produces definitive proof of this salute existing pre-70s. Just to be clear, debunking the age of the wolf salute is not the purpose of this video. In fact, the exact origin of either of these symbols doesn't really matter for the point I'm going to make. Stick with me and I'll explain why. According to this Turkish historian, the wolf is one of the most important symbols for Turks and, quote, nothing to do with racism. So why then the controversy? This academic paper by a Turkish scholar examines Turkish's communication strategies in transforming nationalism into a mass movement. The attention of the youth was attracted by symbols reinforced with historical legends, such as the grey wolf representing Turkishness extending from the Adriatic Sea to China, a concept that is a core aspect of Pan-Turkism, but more on that later. Turkish provides an explanation of the salute's symbolism. The little finger represents the Turks, the index finger represents Islam, the space between the fingers symbolizes the world. The three joint fingers make a seal. The combined gesture signifies the intention to stamp the world with the seal of Turkish Islamic unity. I doubt those historical Turkic tribes would approve of Turkish's interpretation, and that is assuming they even knew the sign, but it doesn't matter because signs can evolve and accrue new meanings. And when they do, they are judged by their current significance, not their historical origins. Turkish had aspirations for his symbols beyond his own party. He expanded his use of symbols by engaging with other political leaders, intellectuals, and the public to integrate these symbols into broader propaganda for different political groups. Similarly, while the Nazi salute was first adopted internally by the Nazi party, it was later made mandatory for all German citizens. Whereas the MHP and Grey Wolves never came into full power in Turkey, but are in an alliance with the ruling party, so their use of the sign is a bit more wishy-washy. Turkish also ran Grey Wolves training camps himself. But just who are the Grey Wolves anyway? To put it simply, Mussolini's National Fascist Party had the Opera Nazionale Balilla paramilitary wing, Hitler's Nazi Party had the Hitlerjugend, Turkish's MHP has the Bozkurtlar, or the Grey Wolves. All of these so-called youth wings received paramilitary training and were involved in violent acts to serve their parent party. But the similarities between these two symbols that I mentioned up until now are merely circumstantial. Does a direct link between these groups exist? Well, Turkish openly sympathized with Nazism and Adolf Hitler. He took a pro-Hitler position during World War II and became among the Nazi party's primary contacts in Turkey. He was also prone to quoting Hitler's Mein Kampf. He also identified with the Pan-Turkish movement, which received support from Nazi Germany, including other Pan-Turkic groups in Europe which had ties to Nazi Germany from the start of the war, if not earlier. The Grey Wolves organization also distributed and recommended Hitler's Mein Kampf. This made sense since they adhere to an extreme form of Turkish nationalism based on a superiority of the Turkish race, mirroring the racial supremacy doctrines central to Nazi ideology. Alright, so they had Nazi ties, so did Hugo Boss, big deal. What else did this group do, you might ask? In the late 1970s, armed bands of Grey Wolves launched a wave of bomb attacks and shootings that killed hundreds of people, including public officials, journalists, students, lawyers, labor organizers, and ethnic Kurds. They have been involved in violent acts throughout their history since, including several massacres and an alleged assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. Since the 80s, the group has been directing their efforts against Kurdish minorities in Turkey, as well as aggressively lobbying for the denial of the Armenian genocide and support of the Turkish occupation of Cyprus. Today, the organization remains active in Turkey, Turkish-occupied Cyprus, Azerbaijan, and Western Europe, where they are mostly disguised as cultural or sports organizations. Okay, let's recap. Both symbols have an unsubstantiated historical claim, evolved through nationalistic incentives before being adopted and weaponized by a violent extremist political party. Both of these groups shared a similar ideology and a history of mutual support. But here's where things between these signs begin to diverge. Since the end of World War II and collapse of the Nazi Party, the German government's approach has been characterized by acknowledgement, education, and reparations. Within that framework, displaying what we now know as the Nazi salute was made a criminal offense in Germany. And since Europe at large recognizes the Nazi salute for what it represents, the Nazi salute has also been banned in other countries such as Austria, Slovakia, and Poland. The US, which used the unrelated but similar-looking Bellamy salute for the Pledge of Allegiance, replaced it with the hand-over-heart gesture in 1942 due to the prior's visual similarity to the Nazi salute. On the other hand, the Grey Wolves and the Wolf Salute have received a vastly different treatment at home in Turkey compared to abroad. While the Grey Wolves are perceived quite negatively across the world due to their association with extremism and violence, at home in Turkey they enjoy support from nationalist and far-right groups. The Turkish government's habitual denial and revisionism of history, along with territorial ambitions, closely aligns with the Grey Wolves' manifesto. Furthermore, Erdogan's ruling AKP party is in an alliance with the ultranationalist party associated with the Grey Wolves. So, when Austria became the first European country to ban the wolf salute in 2019, citing the Grey Wolves' role in promoting violence, Turkey rejected and condemned Austria's move. In 2020, France banned the organization following acts of vandalism and Hunt for Armenian marches. Turkey responded by denying the existence of the group and accused the French government of failing to protect the freedom of expression of Turks in France. Following the French ban, there were calls to ban the Grey Wolves in Germany, Netherlands, and the US. As of today, the group is not banned, though as an extremist organization, they are monitored by German authorities. In 2021, the European Parliament passed a resolution urging the 27 member states of the European Union to designate the Grey Wolves as a terrorist group. In response, Turkish Foreign Ministry called the move unacceptable and described the Grey Wolves as a legal movement which is associated with a long-established political party in Turkey, seemingly contradicting the claim from a year prior that the organization did not exist. Then they blamed the Armenian diaspora, despite ethnic Turks overwhelmingly outnumbering Armenians in the EU. Indeed, over the years, several Turkish government officials have made the gesture, including the Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu and the President Erdogan. The sign has also been flaunted by other Turkey-aligned countries and their officials, such as an Azerbaijani general, along with Azerbaijani soldiers during their ethnic cleansing of Artsakh, and Azerbaijani school children, not to mention various terrorist-aligned fighters in Syria that are backed by Turkey. With all that in mind, is it any surprise then that when UEFA banned Demiral for displaying the salute, Turkey and Azerbaijan were quick to condemn the ban? The Turkish government obfuscates the sign's connection to the Grey Wolves and presents any criticism of it as an attack on Turkishness. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Turkish state media to jump at this opportunity either, where they repeated the same story about ancient Turkic tribes from Central Asia, this time going into prehistory, casually adding a couple of millennia to their story. Again, the age of the salute doesn't matter as long as the misinformation and this narrative of self-victimization leads many Turks to believe that they are in a battle against the entire world. And therein lies the disconnect. The German government associated the Nazi salute with the crimes of their predecessors and banned it, while the Turkish government, with a history of denial, incessantly muddies the waters surrounding the wolf salute, causing a persistent ambiguity around its implications. And the strategy works. If you ask a person showing the wolf salute, the responses would range from open support of the Grey Wolves to "we're just a youth club, hint hint wink wink," to "I'm just your friendly neighborhood proud Turk." On one end, they advocate the superiority of a race and call for violence against others. On the other end, they express national pride without necessarily endorsing the extremist ideologies of the Grey Wolves, but not quite condemning it either. This is why thousands of Turks responded to UEFA's ban by spitefully making the gesture on their next match, both in the Olympiastadion in Berlin and the streets of the city, eventually causing 3,000 Berlin policemen to be deployed to disperse the mob. Profoundly, in the same place where spectators gave the Nazi salute as Hitler opened the 1936 Olympics. Now that we have some context, we can finally try to answer the question, should the wolf salute be banned? The player claimed he made the gesture to celebrate his Turkish identity and that there was no hidden message behind it. Let's take his word for it. Does that absolve him? In 2013, Greek player Katidis made the Nazi salute to celebrate his goal. After condemnation, he claimed he was, quote, "not a fascist and would not have done it if he had known what it meant." In spite of that, the Greek Football Federation voted unanimously to give him a lifetime ban from the Greek national team. He was also suspended by his club for the rest of the season. Similarly, when Italian player Paolo Di Canio gave the Nazi salute in 2005, he received a one-match ban and a fine. In response, the player claimed he was a fascist but not a racist. He said the salute was directed at his people and that he will always salute as he did because it gives him a sense of belonging to his people. Eerily similar words as the Turkish player. As you can see, all these players claim that their gestures had nothing to do with the ideology most commonly associated with it, and I believe they're probably telling the truth. Unfortunately for them, the policy here seems to be that ignorance is not an excuse. Personally, as a general rule, I am against banning signs unless they are actively calling for violence, which I guess one could argue these particular signs exactly do. But what's more important to me is that these signs be subject to similar scrutiny. Both the wolf salute and the Nazi salute have been adopted by extremist groups. Both have been used to propagate extremist ideologies and incite violence. Either both of these signs are okay, or neither one is okay. The constant muddying of waters by the Turkish government and ultranationalists, if anything, makes this sign even more surreptitiously malevolent, not less. This is not very different than a German player doing the Nazi salute. In the same way, this is not that different than the German Chancellor doing the Nazi salute. Finally, if you are a proponent of displaying the salute and made it this far into the video and still want to do the wolf salute, then you have my personal blessing. Please go ahead and announce yourself to the world as much as you desire. Do it proudly. Do it everywhere as the proud Turk that you are. We are all very impressed.